Welcome and good morning. I want to share with you that my heart this morning is particularly filled with a lot of gratitude and joy. Partly for my elders. I look around and I see persons like David Brewer, 50 years in this church, Greta Crosby, our minister emeritus, who served this church for the longest period of time that minister served here and continues to serve us by her presence here practically every week. Bonnie, who's been here 30 years plus. Charles Merrifield, Nancy Milner, Lila and Sigrid, the Diggses. So I see, and forgive me, I know I have forgotten persons. I looked over at Susan Hun Mill, and I looked over at Bill Erickson and Woody Erickson, and I thought, oh my, I forgot them. I'm going to stop there, but if I've forgotten you, forgive me. I hear from persons who are new to us, who enrich us so much, like Doug Clayton, who touched me with his appeal that we remember that there is a person that he knows and loves who lives right next door to him, who, as a woman, is being threatened with homelessness in 2 days. And he asked that we bless her with our action. And everyone in between, I am just overflowing with gratitude for the opportunity to live and move and speak and hear and learn in this community of compassionate and loving and dedicated people. Thank you. So I want to talk about transforming fear into love. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I know that many of you have read this. It's a wonderful book. If you haven't read it, I can urge you. You could do worse than reading this book. It's a wonderful book. I will read you snippets here and there from it. Before I launch into what I have to say, I want to explain why I'm going to run away from the church immediately after speaking today. I have a plane to catch. I'll be in Florida for a week and a day. I'm doing some professional development with some ministers. It's for communication, transformative communication skills and counseling skills. So I'm really looking forward to that. I will also visit with my mother, who's 89 years old, and my sister, who is 8 years my junior. So I'll be very productively engaged in Florida, and I must catch my plane, so forgive me. I'd like to linger afterwards, but I won't be able to. Mark Twain. When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. Well, we laugh. Twain has a way with words, and we laugh. But beyond the humor, there is the tragic reality that very often, too often, we're in denial about who's responsible for our lives. We are responsible for our lives. How we feel, what we do, we are responsible for that. We can take ownership of our experience. We can stop blaming the other guy or gal for how we feel and what's in our life. And when we do that, when we take responsibility for our lives, for our destiny, for our day-to-day experience, we begin our journey from fear to love. The Four Agreements are a Toltec wisdom system. The Toltec, Ruiz explains to us, are not an ethnic group, not a racial descriptor. The Toltec were the shamans, the scientists, the mystics of the Central American, South American indigenous peoples of the Americas. The wizards, the wise women and the wise men of that system codified their knowledge. The Four Agreements is an introduction to that knowledge. Basically, what is being said in the book is that there is a world dream that is illusory, that we are bound by the illusions of that dream, and that there are four agreements that, like a razor, can cut the bindings that hold us from our freedom and hold us from our joy. I will recite the four agreements, but I will speak chiefly about the dream and the first agreement. The first agreement, be impeccable with your word. The second agreement, don't take anything personally. The third agreement, don't make assumptions. The fourth agreement, always do your best. I'm going to talk, as I said, about the dream. Fear controls the dream. What the Toltec wise people have suggested, what they urge on us, is challenge your beliefs, because you didn't choose your beliefs. They were thrust upon you by your parents, by your neighbors, by the school, by the government, by the people who went before. The things that you believe, the things that you hold to be the truth. You heard these by osmosis from all that surrounded you, the society at large, the immediate nuclear family, the extended family. It was against your will that you were programmed, and the program is so deeply encrypted that you don't suspect that it's an illusion. It's reality. And the damage that's done when we accept the illusory dream as real is that, like any other compact, it has its own laws. This is the reality, this is the law, this is the truth. If you transgress that law, there's a judge who stands in judgment of you, internal, your own witness, judges that, oh, no, that's not okay. And then the victim has to pay for the transgression. We'll get into this now, but I want to give one example of the world dream that we buy into that's illusory. Okay, here's the myth. Starvation exists due to scarcity of resource. There's a scarcity of food, there isn't enough arable land, there isn't enough water, and consequently, people are starving. Do we know how many people are starving? Every 3 seconds, a child dies of starvation on our planet. Every 3 seconds, a child dies of starvation. Okay. You can research, and I've given one title here. Dr. Aaron Altschul has written a book, Proteins, Their Chemistry and Politics. Fact number one. If the Earth's arable land were used primarily for the production of foods suitable for a plant-based diet, the planet could easily support a human population of 20 billion or more. Fact 2. In California today, we can save more water by not eating a pound of beef than you would by not showering for an entire 6 months. What is that? Should I repeat it? I won't repeat it, but I'll give you the statistic that supports it. To produce 1 pound of beef, you have to exhaust the Earth's resource by 5,214 gallons of water for 1 pound of beef. Now, 1 pound of wheat requires 25 gallons of water. Water shortage is another thing we believe. There's not enough potable water on the planet. Most hunger deaths are due to chronic malnutrition caused by inequitable distribution and inefficient use of existing food resources. At the same time, wasteful agricultural practices, such as intensive livestock operations known as factory farming, are rapidly polluting and depleting the natural resources upon which all life depends. Now, rather than trot out statistics so that you can verify this, I'll just urge you. There are 3 films that I've seen over the years. Food, Inc. If you haven't seen it, please. Super Size Me. If you haven't seen it, please. Forks Over Knives. We showed it here. We had a full house. If you haven't seen it, please. These suppositions that there is a scarcity, and that's why people are starving, have to be cut by using the 4 agreements. Get the information and apply the information as you see fit as an individual, but don't remain in the illusion that the earth is war-torn, people are starving, there is rape and murder and all sorts of horrors in this world, because that's just how it is. There's nothing better we can do. The better that we can do starts with that first agreement, which Ruiz says that's the most important and it's also the most difficult. Let me say what it is. Be impeccable with your word. So what is your word? Your word is divine creative energy. Your word is a seed. And you plant that seed when you talk to yourself. I'm a fool. I'm just hopeless. I'm ugly. I'm too fill in the blank. Skinny, fat, short, tall, white, black. Fill in the blank. I am deficient. Don't give yourself that seed because you are watering deficiency. You are creating debility. You are defeating yourself. I'm divine. I am an integer of reality. I am whole. I am complete. I am in the image of God. By that word, you're planting the seeds of your joy and of your capacity to love yourself and others. Your word is the blueprint of the manifest world. We have heard, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And, there will be persons who complain that that's a Hellenistic import into Christianity. It came from Greece. And so it's not pure Christian thought. But I think that the early followers of Jesus were not such fools that they couldn't see what was valuable from the past. And if the Greeks discovered the potency of the Word and celebrated it, and the followers of Jesus said, well, that's good, that helps, that's a good thing. And that's exactly why. Yes, it's an import from the gymnosophists and philosophers of Greece. It's Hellenistic. So it nourished Jerusalem's message. But the message we find in Central America with the Toltec, too. So what about misusing your word on a big scale? We talked a little bit about self-talk. Love yourself and tell yourself that you deserve to be forgiven when you err. That you deserve to be loved always. That when people are abusive and hateful towards you, it's not acceptable. And that the remedy for their hateful abuse of you is not for you to become hateful and abuse them, but to love them and to love yourself. What happens when we misuse the word in a big time way? Hitler is what Ruiz talks about. How with his word he fanned a flame of hatred that it will take hundreds and hundreds of years for humanity to recover from. So much of the anguish and nihilism and defeatism in the world today has to do with the misuse of the word that took place in Germany during the Third Reich. I wanted to give some examples of persons who've used the word creatively in a way that has edified humanity. And the first person that came to mind was Jalaluddin Rumi, whom the Sufis refer to as Mavlana, which means our teacher, my teacher. They don't like to say Rumi, it just means he's from Rome, which he was situated in a part of Turkey that was part of Rome then. He was from Afghanistan. But my teacher, he's the most popular and most well-read poet of today. And what is his message? It's about loving yourself. It's about loving all others. It's about diversity. So among Unitarian Universalists, he and Mary Oliver are like side by side, most popular poets. Because they're all about, just diversity, love, and being free of illusion as much as possible. Now, when I was thinking about this talk, well, I'm going to save that for a minute. I made some notes here to read from the book, give you a taste of Ruiz. This should take a few minutes, but they're well worthwhile. He, first of all, in the introduction, talks about someone who named himself after his transformation the smoky mirror. That he slept in a cave. I know people who've slept in caves in this 21st century, who chose to sleep in caves and bathe in the river and eat whatever came to their hand that day so that they could practice breaking free of illusion. So he was sleeping in a cave, and he woke up, and he looked at his hands, he felt his body, and he heard his own voice say, "I'm made of light. I'm made of stars." He looked at the stars in the sky, and he realized that it's not the stars that create light, but rather the light that creates the stars. Everything is made of light, he said, and the space in between is not empty. And he knew that everything that exists is one living being. And that light is the messenger of life because it is alive and contains all information. Then he realized that although he was made of stars, he was not those stars. I am in between the stars, he thought. So he called the stars the tonal and the light between the stars the nagoel. And he knew that what created the harmony and space between the two is life or intent. Without life, the tonal and the nagoel could not exist. Life is the force of the absolute, the supreme, the creator who creates everything. Now, this is the paragraph that I was leading up to. This is what he discovered. Everything in existence is a manifestation of the one living being we call God. Everything is God. And he came to the conclusion that human perception is merely light perceiving light. He also saw that matter is a mirror. Everything is a mirror that reflects light and creates images of that light. And the world of illusion, the dream, is just like smoke, which doesn't allow us to see what we really are. The real us is pure love, pure light, he said. Now, if I talked about the myth of scarcity, but I will be giving a sermon soon why I don't believe in death. My best friends and I, my most intimates, we do not believe in death. But that's why it's going to be another sermon. I want to read one other thing. I'm always overambitious. I'm looking at the clock. I have 5 notes. I'm reading only 2. Be impeccable with your word. So he gives a definition. Now let us see what the word impeccability means. Impeccability means, quote, without sin, unquote. Impeccable comes from the Latin peccatus, which means, quote unquote, sin. The im in impeccable means without. So impeccable means without sin. Religions talk about sin and sinners, but let's understand what it really means to sin. A sin is anything that you do which goes against yourself. Isn't that a good definition of sin? Anything that you do that goes against yourself, like repressing your sexuality to the point where you become aberrated and you act in antisocial ways. So in other words, a healthy sex life is wonderful, and a repressed sex life is sinful. I'll read that again. A sin is anything you do which goes against yourself. Everything you feel or believe or say that goes against yourself is a sin. You go against yourself when you judge or blame yourself for anything. Being without sin is exactly the opposite. When you are impeccable, you take responsibility for your actions, but you do not judge or blame yourself. That's beautiful. This is an important and wonderful book. When Thea was here teaching her workshops on transformative, passionate communication, she talked about her love of this book. And just this morning, I don't remember who, because I'm in the zone right now, but somebody was saying, oh yeah, I read that book. So I want to wind up with something interesting. When I was ordained in 1989, there was a preparatory ceremony which took place in 86. And then I was observed for 3 years. I had to demonstrate some proficiency and some degree of responsibility, and then I was ordained. Now, when I was ordained, I gave my word to live according to what in the system I was ordained in called sub-religious principles. Because in order to live the religious principles, you have to be truthful, clean, austere, and sober. And nonviolent. So I made these vows of the sub-religious principles. And what did I get for giving my word that I would live nonviolently and soberly and truthfully and austerely? I was given a word. I was given a number of words. So I gave my word and I got in receipt words. I was cheated, right? Thin air. Nothing. I got nothing. Just words. Just words. I was given the blueprint for freedom. Now, what are the disadvantages? I've been practicing one or another form of what I do today since 1967. Let me tell you some of the disadvantages. I spend 2 hours a day doing this. Do you know what that means? There are so many days I don't even think I have time to shower, and sometimes I don't. It's a busy world, and I'm busy. But I find time. Sometimes I've made the 2 hours 1. I learned some techniques. It's really hard. Okay, here's another disadvantage. No coffee, no uppers or downers, no tobacco. There is a whole list of no, 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 and I won't go on. I might scare you. And then, too, I have to study this stuff. And I have to associate with people who are practitioners because otherwise 2 hours a day and no, 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 no. So I have to study and I have to associate. Let me tell you an advantage. I've told this story, and some of you here have heard me tell it. Anita, for example, has probably heard this because she studied meditation with me. Mary Erickson, I know, has heard it. Kathy Hull has heard it. Others may have. My wife has heard it ad nauseum, but I will speak it again. I've been practicing meditation for a couple of years. It means a time when I'm quiet and I use the words of power that were given to me, and I just be with the word. So I'm walking home in Manhattan. I lived in Brooklyn, and I would hop on the train to get home from Manhattan to Brooklyn. And it was a beautiful spring day. It was Washington Square Park. All the hippies were out. I'm talking some years ago. There were jugglers, tightrope walkers, banjo strummers, guitarists, dancers, frisbee throwers, bicycles. It was just like a festival of beautiful life. And I thought, oh boy, I'm just going to cool my heels right here in this park because it's so beautiful. A little voice said to me, go home now. I never don't listen to that voice. The small, still voice. Go home now. I went home. Got on the train, went home. Forgot about it. I'm watching the 11 o'clock news with my mom. And there's a report. Probably 5 minutes after, maybe 7, I left Washington Square Park that afternoon. A gang of white boys came into the park, and every person of color that they saw, they beat savagely. One old woman died. Others were taken to the hospital. What was the story? Some black guy sold a big bag of oregano to these guys, telling them it was marijuana. And they paid a whole lot of money for something they could have gotten for a couple of dollars. Well, they were angry. And I am glad that I sat in meditation so that I did not have to pay for their ignorance and their misuse of the word and that black guy's misuse of the word. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a reason why I sacrifice and I struggle and I don't always enjoy doing my practice. I said it. I don't always enjoy doing my practice, but I do it because I enjoy living and I enjoy being free and I enjoy having integrity. And I know the power of my word. I've given my word. I've given my word to people that I love and respect. And to the best of my ability, and that gets to the fourth agreement. And I'll wind up with telling you how I got this book. The fourth agreement is always do your best. So one day, I was really blue. It wasn't so long ago. I was unhappy. And I said to the friend who gave me the book, oh, I'm so unhappy. I just hate it. And she said to me, have you read that book, The Four Agreements? No, I haven't. Well, I started it, but, I thought, I know that. I read, the first chapter. It didn't, she said, oh, well, you should read The Fourth Agreement. What you're telling me, you wouldn't be saying if you read The Fourth Agreement. Okay, I'll read The Fourth Agreement. So I opened the book, I read The Fourth Agreement. I said, well, that's great. I really needed that. Oh, I went back to the first agreement. I read that. I read the second agreement. I said, this is a great book. And I told her, Joy, that was a great book. Thank you so much. So you have all the power that you need to change yourself and to change the world. There do not have to be children dying at the rate that I said at the top of this talk. It's because we are mismanaging the planet, and it's because of greed, envy, and hatred that are unchecked because people do not know the power of our words. First, we change ourselves. We become responsible. We stop blaming others. We take responsibility for our own lives. And then we transform the world by sharing the knowledge that each of us is a divine being and that this world is simply the projection of our words and our thoughts and our deeds. Now I'm going to run to the airport. Thank you very much.